Hey guys, welcome back to the Subpar Grappling podcast. I'm your host, Alan, the Subpar Grappler, and I know I've been away for a while. Sorry about that. But now I'm back, and I had the amazing opportunity a few days ago to interview my friend Alex about her disability and how she lives with it. So, a few disclaimers though. I ran into some audio issues with my microphone. And so during the interview, I sound a little bit quiet or distant or kind of shaky, I guess. I don't know how to explain. But Alex sounds great, and she has a lot of great things to say. So with that out of the way, I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
The Bible says so much about weakness and about how, and trials and struggles and suffering. And I'm learning more and more about that as that's just kind of an interest of mine. Like how can we how can more Christians access that and kind of delve deep into those truths together?
Yeah.
But
Welcome to the podcast, Alex.
thank you.
For being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, so you're our first official guest here.
Oh, I'm so honored.
on the Subpar Graphic podcast. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, yeah. My name is Alex Taussig. Alan, you and I know each other through OKC Community Church,
Right.
represent. And yeah, I live here in Oklahoma City. I work for the state government as a vision rehabilitation therapist, which let me break it down because that means that I go into the homes of folks who are blind or losing their vision and help them with their independence skills.
And so that's very cool.
Yeah.
So on this podcast, I talk about a lot about disabilities. So I'm trying to bring other people in.
I love it.
So,
The umbrella of disability is huge.
Yeah.
We're the largest minority in the world. So I love that you're bringing it in. You're
Yeah.
bringing it out to everybody.
well, I'm just curious about what you deal with.
Yeah, totally. So, when I was a little kid, I wanted to I was born with my disability. We call that a congenital disability.
Sure.
I know you're the same with CP. Yeah. And so was born with it. I was diagnosed at 6 weeks old. And so I'll break down and when I was a kid, I wanted to feel smart. So I learned the scientific name for what my eye condition is, but and I'll say it here just to, everybody loves to bring out a $5 word, but it's bilateral optic nerve hypoplasia. I know. I know. So cool. And that just means that my optic nerves, which carry the messages from your eyes to your brain, mine are underdeveloped.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I wasn't a preemie or anything like that. It was just a fluke thing that happened. And what that means is that I have problems with my distance vision and my depth perception.
Okay.
The depth perception is because because one eye can see better than the other. Mm-hmm. And anytime you have that going on, you're going to have problems with depth perception.
Right.
So I do call myself quote unquote the blind girl, but and we can unpack that a little bit maybe, but I have a lot of vision, let me see. Oh, so basically when I was a little baby, my parents noted I'm the second of 3 kids. So my parents noticed that even a little newborn will look at you, when they hear a voice or something like that. Yeah. And I wasn't doing that. And they noticed that I was opening my eyes one at a time. It's like that.
Huh.
Oh, and one other thing that I want to add in, especially since you have a video podcast, people can probably tell, I have my right eye is the lid droops a little bit over my eye. And that actually doesn't have anything to do with optic nerve. That is something called ptosis. And what that means is just that the eyelid muscle is a little bit lazy.
Okay.
Honestly, it's something that like really old people often deal with. Like they get old and their eyelids get droopy and all that kind of thing. But so in my story of disability, the reason I wanted to like bring that out is because the droopy eyelid and the fact that kind of my head moves a lot, just kind of my eyes just kind of wander, things like that. And those two things, the head movement and the droopy eyelid, are what make my disability something that somebody might notice.
Yeah.
Right? I could pretty easily fly incognito if it wasn't for those things. And even that is a little bit strange because people kind of know that there's something going on, but they don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah. I get that.
Yeah.
I had this sort of
Right.
experience where, as a babies move around all the time, but I wouldn't move around. I was just gonna stay there.
Right.
Yeah. So that's when my parents realized that there was a problem. So,
right.
So how, I guess, growing up, so you're not completely blind, right?
No.
You can see a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, I can see a lot. I can see,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all relative, right? People's favorite question for me is like, tell me like what you can see or what you can't see, but okay, I'm going to give an example right now for you from this room.
Okay.
And edit it out if it's not, if it doesn't make sense. But like, okay, so I can see all the way across the room. You have a cabinet, and I can see that there's something black under the cabinet. It looks like it's probably a coffee maker.
It's an air fryer.
It's an air fryer. Okay. So yeah, so I can see that it's black. Okay. I can tell, obviously context clues. I can tell it's probably a kitchen appliance, but I couldn't tell exactly what it was.
Now we'll figure out how to live with the blindness. So how did you come into that? Did you learn the hard way and now you're teaching people how to?
Well, so it's interesting. I can, let's see. There's lots of different things that people can use there's lots of adaptations that could be made for a person who's blind.
Yeah.
What's interesting or different about me is that I don't actually use a lot of those adaptations. For instance, now I can read Braille because I had to learn it for school to get my master's degree.
Okay.
But I did not grow up reading Braille.
What's your master's in?
It's in the same thing that my job is in, vision rehabilitation therapy.
So that is, okay, cool.
Yeah, so I'm learning on the job, so to speak, which is great. But like, so for example, my parents, it was a really big guessing game for them when I was a kid, when I was really young, because they didn't know exactly, I couldn't tell them what I could see, and they didn't know all the things that I might need. So they're working with my teachers. And so they introduced Braille to me, and I picked up the paper and held it really real close and tried to look at it. Mm-hmm. And so that's a good indication, for a blind person. For instance, one of the things I tell a lot of my clients is when you start to lose your sight, or if you don't have your sight, your fingers become your eyes. So you start to explore your world with your fingers and with your hands. You have to feel what things are sometimes. And so obviously that's what Braille relies on, right?
Right.
It's dots that people feel with their fingertips to read. So, but it's a little bit tricky when it just, I've got enough, how I explain it to people is that I've got enough vision that my brain really, really wants to use it. Our brains, our brain, how we are wired is to want to use the capacities that we have.
Right.
And so sometimes with my clients, something interesting that happens is that they've got vision, but maybe it's usually a lot weaker than mine. Just for a little bit of context, blindness is a huge spectrum. It's giant. It's kind of like how we know that autism is a spectrum. Like you could have somebody who's nonverbal, right? And maybe has some intellectual disabilities, can't hold down a job, can't live independently. That person could be on the autism spectrum, right?
Yeah.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got somebody who, just has a couple of special interests that they love to talk about.
Yeah.
And they don't do well with social cues. So those people are both on the same spectrum. So with blindness, it's only 10% of people who identify as blind who have no light perception, no nothing.
Oh, so some people have.
Yeah.
Some degree.
Yeah. So that means 90, and now the kicker is that means that 90% of people have some type of vision.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't always mean that their vision is helpful. So they might be able to see that, so one of the first things I do with a client is I come out and we talk about how their vision is impacting their life, the things that they're not able to do because of their vision loss. But then I actually test their vision, because at the eye doctor, it's basically like the perfect world, right? Like it's a completely sterile environment, lots of bright lights. You can have as long as you want to look at that chart to answer, right?
Yeah.
But in real life, it's not like that.
Yeah, it didn't work that way.
You might not have the lighting that you need in your house. You might not have all the time in the world to try and just read your mail or read a text message or whatever it is. And so the numbers that the eye doctor gets, those are helpful. But what I want to know is, because I'm trying to get that person to, if they've got some vision, I want to bring in magnifiers and things that will help them as much as possible, or lights or whatever.
Yeah.
But if their vision isn't that great, then we need to look at other adaptations.
Yes, like under a.
Yeah, or I mean, some of it is so simple. So I told you about, the thing that when you start to lose your vision, your fingers become your eyes, right? Well, I have something that I keep in my backpack that I take with me. I call it my kit of aids and things like that. And it is it's a little pack of stickers that are tactile. So they're called bump dots by me and my coworkers.
Okay.
And so what I do is, if let's say somebody, they can't use their air fryer or they can't use their microwave because they can't read the numbers.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would take a bump dot and put it on like the 5 on the microwave.
Oh.
Yeah. So then they can reach out and touch the microwave and feel that bump that they know is on the 5. And then not only do they know where the 5 is, they know that they can go up to get to the 2 and they can go down to get to the 8.
So, I guess, so here's an example. So, yes, it's my air fryer.
Yeah.
It's completely
Touchscreen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's no. It's got no numbers either.
Right. Yeah, totally.
It just has like up or like down, like time.
Yeah.
So how would you do that?
Yeah, that one is trickier.
Because I guess you could start it at like 0 and like each question's like a minute.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, actually, more bump dots is not necessarily better, because it just it gets confusing.
Okay.
So you want to try. That's why, I really try to be strategic. Now, I'm going to put. It's that thing of like the customer's always right, right? I'm gonna put, if somebody wants me to put a bump dot on every single number on their air fryer, I'm gonna do it.
Okay. Yeah.
But but from my knowledge, I know that gets really confusing.
Yeah, after a while.
And they even have these bump dots come in all different colors because sometimes somebody they might have some vision, but but it's still just like, how much time out of your day do you want to take to try and read your mic?
Yeah.
You don't. You just, it's one of those things like you just need it to work, right? To do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
So I have bump dots that are orange, black, or white. And the name of the game for folks who are visually impaired is color contrast.
Okay.
So, so for instance, I would not, if somebody had like your black air fryer, I would, if you had low vision, I would not give you black bump dots for that.
Yeah.
I'd give you orange or white.
Yeah, so those could really stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so real life example of that for me. So, I don't use bump dots. And this is kind of what we were talking about. Like, yeah, let me loop back around to how I got into this. Basically, in my own life, I don't use bump dots, but when I went to college, they've got the row of mailboxes on campus,
The PO boxes.
Yes, yeah. And just it's like hundreds of them or something. It would be like a treasure hunt every day of my life to be able to find the right one, right? So what my mom did when she took me to campus to move in, we put an orange sticker on my mailbox. So it drew my eye immediately. And what's really funny is that there were some other students there who had low vision. And they saw the orange sticker and they said, "We knew another blind girl moved in."
It's just funny that they just know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, but that being said, like I'm in kind of a weird, I tell people a lot that I think that I have kind of one foot in the world of blindness and one foot in the, non-disabled world, because there's tons of, for instance, like we talked about Braille, I don't use that. I would use large print, or just now in the digital age, I just use Zoom to blow things up a little bit, I don't have a guide dog. I have too much vision to have a guide dog.
Right.
I know that,
Yeah.
I don't use a cane every day. Some people in the blind community are a little bit salty about that. They're like, you should be using one, but I'm living my life, so there you go.
We something that you want guess non-Black people to know about the Black community?
So what I would want people to know is just that, like, if you are uh, not everybody, not every disabled person that you see, like, needs your charity and wants more friends. Not all of us feel that way. Some of us are just trying to do our grocery shopping. You know, when you see us out in public, we don't all need your help, right? But I think that um I think that people will find that if they can be less afraid of offending someone, if they can keep a just a general, like, keep your manners, right? Okay. But, like, keep your common sense too, you know.
For sure.
If you have both those things intact, like, feel free and try and engage, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, and don't and you know, I mean, of course there are co-occurring disabilities, right? Where somebody might have more than one thing going on. And there are people who do need help in public spaces. So, you know, I there's a lot of debate about that in the disability community about, like, should somebody really be, like, helping, like, do I really want people to help me? Some people say no, I don't. Like, I don't want anybody coming up to me and asking if they can help me.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And then some people, and while I don't love that for me, that prospect of someone coming up and wanting to know if they can help, is I don't want people to turn that impulse completely off.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are people who could benefit from it.
Yeah, we do actually.
Yeah, need help and maybe can't or don't verbalize it.
Yeah.
You know, and so by all means help those people. But, like, yeah, just use your common sense
Yeah.
and trust us to, I mean, again, I feel like this is something that's cross disability, but, like, if you are truly being respectful, like, and thoughtful and kind, that's absolutely going to come across.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We can pick up on that vibe. And so even if you don't have the right language or something like that, you know, I'm thinking about all these stories of, like, so I sometimes I get rides from I don't drive. Okay, my vision, even though I have a lot of vision, I don't have enough to be able to drive. It's, like, just under the legal barrier for that.
Right.
So I get rides and I also take the bus. And it's like a 5-minute walk from my bus stop to my house. And so I do that a lot. And people love to ask if I need a ride or need some help or something like that when I'm on my way, when I'm walking back to my house, you know? Yeah. And I can remember one time I told this lady, like, she goes, "Do you need help?" She actually said she goes, you know, something like, "I've seen you walking, you know, I've seen you walking, like, for, you know, every day for the past week. And I just decided that today was the day that I was going to ask you if you needed help." And I was like, I mean, which is so nice, but I'm also like, but again, with the common sense, right? It's like, you saw me every day. Didn't you think walking in the same direction with purpose? Like, didn't you think I got where I was going?
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't you get what
The city was
the same time? It's almost like I'm on time and I know where I'm going. But I know. But then I said, you know, sometimes you gotta shut people down more than once. So I politely shut them down. And so I said, like, no, you know, I don't actually need any help. Thank you so much though. And she asked me again, she goes, "Are you sure?" I said, "I'm sure. Trust me."
Yeah.
And then she goes, "But don't you have eye issues.
Oh boy.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. But I still don't need your help.
Nice. Oh man.
I don't know how I said it, but
Sometimes you just gotta, you gotta let us work it out.
yes, I just thought of something really practical actually that I would love to tell the world about blind people. Um, when you see a blind person and you ask them if they need help, ask them if they need help navigating somewhere, and if they do, invite them to take your arm instead of the other way around.
Okay, gotcha.
Trust me, I've had that happen too. I had a lady I was at the bus station downtown trying to find, and they all park in the same place. So I had just gotten off a bus and I was looking for my next bus and, to go somewhere else. And, I just asked this lady, I said, do you know where bus 13 is? And, she grabbed me by the arm and waltzed me over to where I was supposed to be. And I was 23. Maybe I was giving off some like helpless blind girl vibes, but still, and then my favorite part of the whole thing is that she insisted on waiting with me, which was so embarrassing. And then when the bus actually got there, she got on the bus and told the bus driver, she said, now this is my friend and she's blind and she's going, oh,
Sure, really overboard.
yeah, really overboard. So it's great to help. And I would encourage people not to lose that impulse, but ask people for what they need.
Yeah.
Believe them. Right? Believe if we say we don't need help, believe us. Unless I am like walking out into, unless there's obvious danger.
Yeah.
Believe us. So, I know I'm talking a lot, but okay.
Fine.
Okay, because I wanted to loop back around for real to, you asked about how I got into my job, this line of work, and basically what it comes down to is just that until I had this job, I really didn't get to interact very much with other blind people, because there are different groups and associations out there, but in the blind community specifically, it tends to be pretty formal. Like, there are these committees and these foundations, and if you want to take a part in them, yes, they do go do fun things sometimes. Hey, we're all gonna, I don't know, go to this museum or go to the zoo or something like that. But a lot of times it's like, we're gonna go and sit in this board meeting, and that doesn't really appeal. Plus, on top of that, many of the people are not, I have found not very many of those folks are my age, and especially when I was in my 20s, I was like, I'm not gonna, and I'm not trying to be rude about this, but I just felt like I don't want to get up early on a Saturday and, go sit in a committee meeting or something.
I don't think anybody wants to.
Right. But I wanted to, I guess I wanted to connect with other people who have low vision. And so I had, how did I'd met with, I do work, since I work for the state, this is a weird thing, but I worked at the library for the blind for many years, which is over by the state capitol downtown.
Okay.
But it's not, but I didn't have a job working with blind people specifically. I was just like a secretary there.
Right.
And so I did know some blind people, but I wanted to know other like young people who were doing cool things, and so I had met a couple people, and basically I had gone out to lunch a couple times with a group of people. Some were blind, some were not, just socially. And then after a couple of years, back in 2021, one of those fun people called me and said that she had a job opening and wondered if I wanted to apply. Yeah. So it was like, which was really neat because um it was honestly like what I was in a place where in that secretary job, it wasn't really what I wanted to do, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I felt kind of stuck, and that was exactly what I needed, was somebody to just come along and say like, "Hey, try this." And it was I love meeting new people. I love being able to help people. So it's just like tick tick tick, all these things. So that's kind of
That's super cool. You were able to find that job. Like,
yeah, yeah.
um, so like you said in the beginning, we met in church.
Uh-huh.
So, I guess to hopefully some people in the disabled community watch this. So how do you square like your disability with like, well, for the record, we're Christians, we follow Jesus. So
Yes.
how do you square your disability with like the goodness of God?
Yeah.
Like how do you deal with that?
Yeah. Yeah. Man,
That's a big share stress.
no, I love it. I love it. There's a lot there, that's like the question for every disabled Christian, I think, Um, and I mean, I will say one thing I will say is that I feel really fortunate in is that, somebody might hear me say like, "Oh, I'm legally blind and I don't drive," and they might think like, "Oh man, she's really like suffering." you know I've never known anything different, so my I should also say I didn't really explain this when I was talking about my vision, but what another thing that is really great is that my vision is completely stable. That's something about a lot of people with different eye conditions, is that some people have what they call a degenerative eye disease, where their vision is getting worse and worse over time.
So eventually they go complete like no vision. Some people.
Or they just lose a lot of vision to where, and there's yeah, get your nerd hats on, because there's one eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa, where it doesn't even show signs of it until like your teens or your 20s.
Oh wow.
And so that means and the first sign that people start to notice is like they start to develop night blindness, meaning like they don't see stars at night. It's really hard to get around at night, and that's kind of like the first thing. And so obviously that's really hard to pick up on, because night is a dark time for all of us.
Yeah.
So and then so they can these kids who are growing up with this condition, they often, they can get their license and they can drive a car for many years. And then what happens is you start to lose your peripheral vision. And so it's really like it's a slow process.
Okay.
Until eventually it's like you're looking out of like a drinking straw. Like that's your vision.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, and what's really gnarly is that that's a genetic condition. And so you know that you have it, you know? So in a way, I guess it's kind of helpful to like know what's coming, but it also kind of feels like
I mean, at the same time, it's like you know what's coming.
exactly. Exactly. It's like and every year that passes, you're like, well, how much longer am I going to be able to do this, you know? And the other difficult thing about it is that there are lots of people who, like, for one of the reasons that some blind people wear dark glasses, sometimes it's just because sometimes it's to block the, like, they're not completely blind, right? And so the light that comes in is actually really painful. And so they want to block that light, right? For somebody like for instance, Ray Charles or like Stevie Wonder, you know, they're blind. They don't they're not they weren't seeing they're not seeing anything, right? But their eyes have kind of a maybe they don't look in the same direction, or you know they just their eyes appear kind of strange. And so that's why they wear those glasses. So sometimes what people associate blindness with is this kind of like a look, so to speak, you know, or just a strangeness. But people with retinitis pigmentosa don't have that. You know, they can follow people's they can make eye contact, you know, because they've done it for so long, right? So anyway, you know, that's a rabbit trail there, but
So that's the question. Like, how do you?
oh yeah, how do I square it? How do I square it? I've been avoiding it. Okay. So I have grown up in the church, the Big C church, and my parents did a really good job of they dealt with me and my disability with obviously they helped me when I needed it and wanted me to have everything I needed to succeed, but they also lent some humor to it, you know. And then also they really um helped me to they introduced me to other people with disabilities, got me into, you know, which is much easier to do, by the way, for children. You know, there's camps, there's school programs, there's all kinds of things. And so in particular, Camp Barnabas, you know, was that's a camp that still exists in Springfield, Missouri. And they it was there that I learned the verse, which has been my life verse for many years, Psalm 139, 13 and 14. For you created me in my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. So obviously that is not like a band-aid that you can just put on anything, you know? But I think that hearing that really young gave me a framework for um, realizing that God didn't make a mistake when he made me the way that he did.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, I've had my moments where I have struggles, and maybe that's kind of harder to believe than others.
For sure.
But that's where I think that being a like even if you're not interacting with people with disabilities like every day or whatever, just knowing other people's stories um and seeing how other people deal like is really life-giving. Because and I don't know, I just find that um uh you know that the Bible says so much about weakness and about how, and trials and struggles and suffering. And I'm learning more and more about that as I that's just kind of an interest of mine, like how can we mm, how can more Christians um access that and kind of delve deep into those truths together, but
So what you say somebody kind of grew up just the opposite. Because I grew up, uh, my parents did the same. They took care of me. They made sure I had what I needed. But I still grew up kind of angry that I'm struggling with. And so
I have a question for you actually about that. Right. So did you have other, and I'm not saying by any means that this was like the magic pill that helped me or whatever, but I'm just curious, like, did you have other people around you who had disabilities?
Not at first. I mean, in grade school, I'm trying to think, because I moved around a lot. Basically, up until fifth grade, not really. When I moved to El Salvador, not really. Like the only,
Right.
I'm trying to say this nicely. The only like disabled people, they're kind of like abandoned, left
Right.
to their own devices.
Right.
So I was kind of the only, yeah, I'll just say functioning person.
Right.
Town.
Yes.
So all I really saw was just what I couldn't do.
Yeah.
So, always just saying to somebody like me who grew up like that, I'm not angry anymore, but like somebody who isn't, God, you allowed this to happen to me.
Yeah. Man, well, I think the first place to start is not with pity by any means, but just with I just want to say like I can understand how that happened. I'm so sorry that it did. Um but I guess my question or my encouragement would be like um well, first of all, like truly, to I know you said that you've done a lot of like healing work for yourself, which is so awesome, but I think as people with disabilities, as Christians with disabilities, we need to be honest with ourselves and with Jesus about where we are struggling.
Okay.
Because I think there's a huge response to, there's so much emphasis in our society on overcoming disability.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's what people want. And people want the inspirational side of things.
Yeah.
They want to know, how did you not let that stop you? And I get where they're coming from, but at the same time, what I would say to that is like, I'm still disabled. I haven't overcome anything. It's still here. It's still blind, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And so because of that narrative in society about overcoming disability, I think there's a huge pressure either to make your disability disappear, or blend in with everybody else, non-disabled people, or I don't know if you've heard the term super crip before.
No.
It's only in disability circles. This is another big red flag. Don't ever use the word crip or cripple if you don't have a disability. You don't get to use it. It's our word. But yeah, and lots of people with disabilities don't like that word, but I think it's a really helpful, in this case, kind of a dichotomy to paint of the super crip, which is the person who has a disability who, won the Nobel Peace Prize and, like is doing all these incredible things, and it's like, man, if you're not so because we're trying not to get lumped in with stereotypes of disability. We're trying to blend in, and sometimes that can lead to a lot of like just inauthentic living. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Or like a lack of peace.
Yeah, I think I'm more the second one, just like I'm trying to just kind of blend in. Okay.
Yeah.
Trying to do what everyone else is doing.
Right.
And if I can't do those things, then like I just get mad and annoyed.
But what I will say is, I thought about this all the way back at the restaurant when we had burgers a couple weeks ago. I can remember when you got to share a testimony at church on stage.
I heard a long time ago.
I know it was. I know it was, but you know what? I mean, and this is just this is what it truly meant to me. I was like, and of course, there's a whole other side to disability, which is invisible disabilities, right?
Yeah.
Things that no one can see. So in that way, I don't know that you were the first disabled person to get up there and speak on stage, but you were the first person with a noticeable physical disability to get up there and speak on stage that I had ever heard. And I thought, that's amazing. And what you and what you shared about was so powerful, because I even touched on that a little bit a couple minutes ago just now, of talking about you, our wonderful pastor Tim. Shout out Tim.
That's there. Welcome, Tim.
Yes, come on the pod, Pastor Tim. But he was talking about rest. I think it was like abiding and rest,
I don't remember the actual message because that was a while, right?
I know it was.
Sorry, Tim.
Right. Yeah. No, we hang on your every word. But what I remember about it mainly was that I thought that was so powerful and so important that to share that, like, because honestly, yeah, there are so many people out there with disabilities who will never do half of what a non-disabled person does with their day. Right? But their bodies make it so that they have to rest.
Yeah.
Like, I get to a point, people get to a point where they just can't do anymore. And so I believe that how we can find peace is through Jesus. Because we have to say, like, we don't have to, but I think ultimately what hopefully the spiritual lesson from that experience would be that, like, our value is not in our performance.
Yeah.
Right? Like, our worth is not based in what we can do.
Yeah.
That's that we love to put that verse on coffee cups and cross stitches, that my grace is sufficient for you, my power is made perfect in weakness. Mm-hmm. We love to talk about that, but we hate being weak.
Yeah.
People do, and that's what I think.
It's not fun.
No, of course not. But that's what I think the wisdom that people with disabilities have to offer the church. Because the truth is that even if you don't have a disability, you experience weakness in one way or another. Another verse that I love a lot from the Psalms is, my flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my life.
That's a good one. I know.
Yes, because and it goes. I love it too because it really does encompass everything. It encompasses my physical body, and it also encompasses, like, of course, like I might not be able to, lift at the gym like I want to or whatever, but also or I may not be able to like get done all my tasks, but also I might have failings in my heart.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And God is my strength despite all of that.
That's really good. I like very good comment.
Thanks. And so, yeah.
So I guess my last question then goes to your you're on the prayer team of the church, and that's awesome. How long have you been on the prayer team?
Oh gosh. I don't remember when I started, but I know that I was not attending church for like a full year when COVID happened. Okay. So like I joined back in 2021 and I've been going strong ever since.
Okay, so I'm guessing that a few of those prayers have been just stuff like the healed, something like that.
Yeah.
And church sometimes we hear stories of people, being healed.
100%.
And that's also that's great. That's awesome. But like it is for people with disabilities. And this year, hey, this pain in my back went away. Or, I'm not trying to minimize someone's petty, but like I guess I'm not great per se, but like sometimes I do try to figure out like why someone like me or doesn't, or like I don't know if you've prayed for healing for yourself before.
Yeah. I mean, okay. That's a big that's the $5 million question, right?
Yeah.
Because many people do struggle with those thoughts and feelings of why not me? I've even felt like I've felt like at different times, is the point of me being born with low vision for me to be healed miraculously and other people to have faith because of that? Um, which is like just and I know that for people out there in the disability community, many people feel that deeply.
Yeah.
The pain of longing to be healed and being told by friends and family that they should be healed and then not having experienced it yet, not having seen it yet. It is what I will say is I have prayed a couple times. I have not experienced, just to be real, I have not experienced having a healing prayer be answered like in the moment. I've never prayed for somebody to be healed and then they were like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
God is good. Get out of my wheelchair. Like whatever. That's never happened to me.
Sure.
Yeah. And it's tough because I truly believe that does happen.
Oh, me too. I do believe it.
Yeah, it does. We've seen it. Yeah, absolutely. God heals. But yeah, but why doesn't it happen for everybody? I think the conclusion that I have to come to is that like God knows how to get the most glory for himself and the most good for us, ultimate good, not temporary, right, satisfaction, but ultimate good out of the story that he has given us. And so it's not what everybody wants to hear. I know that there are so many people with disabilities out there who are still wanting to be healed. But it's like, Alan, I believe that God can get more glory right now through you having CP and struggling with that than he would if he had healed you by now.
Okay.
And I you know, obviously that's me somehow speaking for the Lord, which seems like a mistake now, but
we all do that sometimes.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I would listen to it.
right, totally. So this is just
But
me.
I like the way you think through the shot.
Yeah, and I think that yeah, I think that it's a major pain point for people because we know that um you know, I mean, I'm sure you and I both know people who have died, you know, through either through injury or with a disability or something that people were praying for them to get healed and then they weren't. And that is just like that is really hard. And I think that there has to be a way to hold both.
Amen.
And so that's what I'm interested in doing is figuring out how can we say, yes, God heals, and also make a space for people to feel comfortable where they don't feel like, oh man, am I just like a miracle waiting to happen? Is that the purpose of my disability and my life? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does make sense. I think, yeah, I do like what you said that ultimately God knows how to get the most out of everyone.
Yes. I was just going to say that, you know, um, as I was praying, one time I was praying for a lady who has lupus, which is like a chronic pain condition, an autoimmune disease, so an invisible disability.
Yeah.
Very painful, very difficult to deal with, and she was really struggling and asked me to pray for her healing. And as I, you know, I did, I I prayed for her to be healed and I kind of fought with myself internally of like, you know, I want to pray for you to um take this to Jesus and like learn how to not manage this, but like to ask Jesus to help you learn how he wants you to live with this, you know?
Yeah.
But but I did pray for healing because that's what she asked
Yeah,
for.
no.
But
I think eventually, and I don't.
yeah, eventually,
I do. I used to think that this was a cop out, but I don't think it is anymore. That like eventually everyone will be healed.
truly. But I got this sense as I was praying for this lady, you know, I think it felt like it might have been the Holy Spirit talking to me, but just felt this in my heart that like God knows the best stories to tell, and I don't.
For sure.
So, you know, it was just this sense of like, you know, if I want to heal this lady, then I'm going to heal her. And that might be the best, that will be the best story for her.
Mhm.
You know, it also might be that because I also think that what going through suffering and pain does for us is it allows us to be compassionate and empathetic to others who are dealing with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And it actually builds bridges in that way. And so, you know, I thought, well, you know, and maybe she won't be healed and maybe she will just be this incredible, you know, witness to others. And but I don't get to decide that. God gets to decide that.
Yeah.
And so like holding it with open hands, I think is the best way to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the subject a lot, and I guess we'll end the episode on that note, and then you have to go.
Yeah.
Alex, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for listening on the show.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's started with him.